Hello, and welcome to Monday. Well, I don't have anything else to welcome you to, seeing as the Kickstarter is done, and we are currently in a period of transition. Particularly, you may notice the new digs in the period of time between now and my last update. I moved to a new location, and I still have yet another new location that I'll be preparing to move to soon. A much bigger move than this one. But that will interfere with general updates and all that sort of thing. But I wanted to give you all a little rundown on a couple of the backing platforms. As noted with the Kickstarter for Legends of Mathematica Squared, we were going to do a relaunch on other platforms. And initially, the idea was to relaunch both on Kickstarter and on our secondary platform. But I think it'll just be relaunching on a different platform altogether and just doing there and seeing what happens. Particularly, we will be the platform that we'll be selecting is, of course, Indiegogo. I have seen a lot of their work and things, but for today, I also wanted to take a look at the other platforms. I'd mentioned them before, that there are other existing platforms out there, each with their own specialities. And I have this page. It's called Investopedia. Great little place for learning things about how to business in the online world. So I highly recommend checking that out. But yeah, just look up best crowdfunding platforms, Investopedia. You'll find this page. But you've got some interesting things here, particularly their note of what are the best platforms of 2021. They note Indiegogo, Seed Invest, Mighty Cause, Start Engine, GoFundMe, and Patreon. Kickstarter's not actually on their list for 2021, which is interesting. Very interesting. Now, I actually have an additional page open that's looking at these, but I'm just going to go through some of their basic overviews on some of these. So, first off, Indiegogo. Pros. It's an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Well, I always take ratings with a grain of salt on anything, but I feel like Indiegogo's actually earned it from my experience with them. Great for entrepreneurs and investors, and they have worldwide operations. So you got a lot of reach and a lot of other things. I should also note the character of a lot of the works that show up there. At least now, me being in the entertainment space, I've seen a lot of comics go up over there. I think I feel like I haven't seen as many games go up all that well over there, but it's usually been a thing of where people do something similar to what I did, where they go to Kickstarter, they kind of bungle it a little bit, and then go to Indiegogo to pick up the dregs, which ideally I think it'd be better to if you're going to do it, just go straight from there. But yeah, so this is the site. And there's a lot of information on here. I won't just read it off to you. You can look it up. You can dig in a little bit more. And then we got, what's this? Seed Invest. So whereas Indiegogo is standard one-time project, get the money, go kind of deal, right? And you've got Seed Invest, which is for doing a startup. So when I was talking earlier about brand building and that idea of you have your product and then you have your brand, and those are two separate things, and you need to be operating in a different way when you're advertising one or the other. So Seed Invest is one of those deals of where when you're looking at something to get money for your brand or your company, this would be the angle that you look at. And so this one basically draws in, if you look on the pros list, particularly it draws in angel investors. So you might not be familiar with that phrase, but an angel investor is basically somebody who they like the idea, they think it's really cool, they want it to succeed, and they're just going to give you money. They just give you the money. This is one of the things that a lot of people who are going for a startup, like if you're, it's one of the tactics that you can use is just like find a place where angel investors are and figure out where the ones that are associated with your particular business um, would hang out. I know while I was in Seattle, well, I am still around there, but while hanging out around there, I would go to I would try and get into business conferences and stuff and try where venture capitalists and angel investors would just kind of rub elbows and just get to know people there. Um, it's one of the standard rules of thumb in our current era, although it's changing, but it's one of the standard rules of thumb, at least when you're dealing with old money. It's not really what you know, it's who you know. Like, what you know keeps the door open, who you know opens the door. So that's, I mean, it's oversimplifying oversimplifying the whole deal. But I digress. Seed invest. It's better for if you're trying to do something with a company as opposed to an individual project. Then that's what you do. And then what do we got here? Now, Mighty Cause. Now, some of these I haven't actually. Some of these I'm looking at for the first time. What was there? Yes, nonprofits. And one of the big deals here is that they are low cost. And they also offer support, which I should note, that's another thing Indiegogo actually does, at least on their site, offer support. And, right, and on Seed Invest also, as an additional bit, is you have to go through a vetting process there. They will curate you, which basically means make sure that you're legit. So you should try and make sure you know what you're doing when you go there. So with Mighty Cause, it's a nonprofit, and I've actually worked with another group that specializes in nonprofits, although they're not on this list, which was called Crowdster. But a lot of similar those kinds of platforms. There seems to be a lot of similar integrations, particularly with the idea of you can work with them to help boost your spread. And the big thing here is that this one has these groups have their specific clientele that show up and are watching for these different deals. So if you're doing something that's a bit more of a nonprofit, maybe trying to collect money to help the homeless, or I was about to say do research into hempcrete, but that's not a nonprofit thing. But that sort of deal, then the Mighty Cause might be the one you want to look at. And what do we got here? We got Start Engine. So this is one I haven't heard of at all. So let's see what they got. So standout option for those looking to invest some money because the platform allows everyday people like you to put your money directly into companies and startups you admire and get equity in return. So it's like it basically allows the people to partially invest. So it's basically like a mini stock platform in a sense. Although it doesn't allow you to do trading or anything, but you can buy a portion of companies that are basically publicly tradable, but in a startup space. That's interesting. Yeah, that's probably not something I'll go for, just because of creative control and everything. But they do have Kevin O'Leary, which is the Shark Tank guy, big investor dude. Always doing new and interesting things, which probably means there's something good going on there. Although that's appeal to authority and all that. Have to make sure you gotta vet this thing yourself a little bit, but it's interesting. So something for partial investment into the company. So again, this one's a lot like Seed Invest in nature. Where it's about getting your company off the ground rather than an individual project. But the partial ownership bit is interesting to me. Very interesting to me. But it does sound like something that a serial investor would make. So the fact that Kevin O'Leary is in there, or at least is reportedly in there, tracks a little bit. Anywho, And we got GoFundMe, which I think a lot of people are actually familiar with these days. Um, it's the most just general platforms. Like if somebody's in a bind and they're like, I need money to fix my broken leg, or the insurance won't cover X, I need to cover the rest of it. Generally speaking, they'll run a GoFundMe. Well, if they're savvy, they'll run a GoFundMe. So one of the things with this one is it doesn't actually have a platform fee, and it is very flexible. It doesn't really have too many requirements about what you do with it. So, in a sense, you GoFundMe has a lot of genericness on its side, and that's a plus and a minus. So on the plus side, it means that you'll reach a lot more. You'll reach more varied audience when you're doing GoFundMe's. But it also means that you're not necessarily going to reach your specific audience. If you have a particular demographic that you're trying to sell to, or a particular set of people that you feel really need to discover you, the GoFundMe is more of a generic thing. And really, at least as far as how that brand has developed over the years, like I know personally, as kind of a consumer, I associate it a lot more with charity cases, and not nonprofits, but the whole idea of giving money to help somebody get over a big problem in their life. It's a very personal stories oriented dealy. So that's GoFundMe. And then they have Patreon here, which I think a lot of people are familiar with what that is. It's the pay-for-play subscription service. Pretty much anyone can get started up there. The fees are a little bit higher depending on the situation. They do have a lot of different forms of support. And I should note that they do have a competitor in the form of Subscribestar, although I haven't seen much of what's been going on with them. Of note with regards to Patreon, and actually this is also of note with regards to Kickstarter too. There have been at least some people have noted that there is some selective support and removal on those platforms. I cannot confirm or deny whether or not that is actually true. It's just that these are things that have surfaced at various points in the histories of both platforms, and are things that have turned people off to those platforms. That said, I know Patreon's been going through some changes as of recent, so I don't know all of the deals of what's going on there. But it's something of note is that, if you are worried about, what's the word? Being controversial, I guess. If you're worried about being controversial, I would say just, not necessarily tread with caution, but go in, do what you're going to do, and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, if for some reason something like that would happen, that's more press, which is an interesting thing in of itself. Contrary to popular belief, there is, well, not contrary to popular belief, but getting bad press is still press. It's just you have to do different things with regards to it. Some people can leap off of that. Other people can just get crushed. So you got to be careful about that. But I digress. But yeah, those are the things, and those are the top ones. Now, those are the top ones according to Investopedia, and I'm not quite sure what their criteria was, but I recognized at least. Well, I recognized 4 of them, so I don't think they're completely off base. But yeah, so that's at least my take on this particular article that I found. And again, that's Investopedia, best crowdfunding platforms. There are others, and I might look into those at another time. But seeing as the Kickstarter is done, updates from this channel will be much more intermittent, particularly because I am resolving a whole bunch of different things at the same time right now, including moving. As more things come to completion and come to light, I might give you guys a little bit insight into what all else is happening over here at Vernacular. But for now, I'm just gonna leave you with that mystery, I suppose. And if you have any particular questions, you can always ask. You can always post in the comments, and you can ask what's going on there. So, without further ado, we'll bring us to the sign off. I should note that we are going to eventually relaunch the Legends of Mathematica Kickstarter. It's probably, I had said 2 or 3 weeks from the initial end date, but it's probably going to be closer to a month or two following. That said, production on the game is moving forward regardless, and we are still going to head towards the release in 2022. So without further ado, play the games you want to play, boyos. This is Redcode, signing off.